Hey guys, this story is wild, so sit down, grab a snack, and let's get into this mess. So, remember Mariah Carey? Of course you do. Back in the 1990s, she was everything. She was on top of the music charts, writing her own songs, producing albums, and controlling how she looked and sounded. That was super rare, especially for a woman of color in the music world. She had the voice of an angel, dressed like a diva, and could sing in any genre. Basically, Mariah was the boss of pop and R&B. But here's the thing, out of nowhere, things started to change, and not in a good way. Let's talk about this crazy moment. Mariah had this special melody she locked down during the summer for one of her songs. She was all ready to drop it. But then boom, that same melody showed up on Jennifer Lopez's album. Yeah, the same one. And Mariah was like, wait, what? It didn't make any sense. How did her melody end up in J.Lo's hands? That really got under her skin. It felt personal. Now here's where it gets even messier. You probably heard people say that Beyoncé and Jennifer Lopez have made it hard for other artists to shine. But what if it's not just rumors? What if Beyoncé and J.Lo really did take the career that was meant for Mariah Carey? Not by mistake, but on purpose. Some fans are saying Mariah was slowly pushed out of the spotlight so Beyoncé and J.Lo could take over. And guess what? That theory might actually be coming from Mariah herself. Allegedly, she's been dropping little clues, and y'all, it's messy. Let's go back a bit. Did you know Beyoncé used to be a huge Mariah Carey fan? Like, she totally looked up to her. She even said that hearing Mariah's song Vision of Love was the moment she knew she wanted to sing. Beyoncé didn't talk about Whitney or Aretha the same way. Nope, it was all about Mariah. She called her a huge inspiration. There are even old videos of a young Beyoncé just staring at Mariah in awe, like a total fangirl. She would say things like, Mariah's voice comes from God, and she can squeeze so many notes into one bar. She studied Mariah's singing style and even admitted to trying it in her own music. But then, something changed. People noticed that Beyoncé stopped shouting out Mariah. It's like she stopped giving her credit. And some fans think it's because Beyoncé wanted to build her own image. Not as just a singer, but as a legend like Michael Jackson or Prince. And to do that, maybe she felt she had to move past Mariah, or even act like Mariah didn't matter anymore. Now here's where it gets deep. Some people are saying that Beyoncé didn't just rise to the top because of talent. They say she had help from her husband Jay-Z and from people high up in the music world. And guess what? That help may have come at the cost of other talented artists, like Mariah Carey. It wasn't a fight out in the open, but more like quiet power moves behind the scenes. Like who gets the best music, the best media coverage, and the biggest stage time. We already talked about how Mariah Carey was the queen of the music world in the 90s, and how things started changing when Jennifer Lopez and Beyoncé started blowing up. But now we need to talk about the real drama that happened with Jennifer Lopez, and how it may have been planned by someone close to Mariah. So back when Mariah was working on her movie Glitter, she had gotten the rights to use a song sample from this old school group called Yellow Magic Orchestra. The song was called Firecracker, and she wanted to use it in her track Loverboy. Everything was all set. But then, out of nowhere, that exact same sample showed up in one of J.Lo's songs before Mariah even got to release hers. How does that even happen? Well, here's the tea. At the time, Mariah was married to Tommy Mottola, a powerful music executive who also worked at Sony, the label Mariah was signed to. But their marriage had turned really bad. Mariah wanted out of the relationship and out of her Sony contract, but Tommy, he was mad, real mad. So mad that he used his connections to sabotage Mariah's career. And guess who he used to do it? Yep, Jennifer Lopez. Tommy gave the Firecracker sample to J.Lo's team on purpose, just to mess with Mariah. Then, Sony blocked Mariah's version and rushed J.Lo's song to the public. Mariah was heartbroken and confused. In her book, The Meaning of Mariah Carey, she talked about how Tommy did everything he could to make sure she didn't shine after leaving him. And giving J.Lo her sample was just one of the moves he made to make sure glitter flopped. And let's be real, J.Lo knew what was going on. People close to the situation said she went along with it, even though it wasn't right. Mariah even said in her book that another female artist from Sony, who she pretended not to know, got the sample because Tommy wanted to punish her. Yep, that was her way of throwing shade at J.Lo. Speaking of not knowing her, remember that iconic moment when Mariah was asked about J.Lo and she said, "I don't know her"? Baby, that wasn't just a random line, that was payback. She knew exactly who J.Lo was and what she did. It didn't stop there either. In a 2002 interview with Larry King, Mariah was asked if there was any beef between her and Jennifer Lopez. And Mariah said something that had everybody gasping. She said, "There's no competition if the other person can't sing." Oop! That was definitely about J.Lo. Mariah made it clear that she was a real singer who wrote her own songs and used her God-given voice. Meanwhile, she hinted that J.Lo's talent was, well, something different. Then, Mariah shaded J.Lo again in a magazine interview. J.Lo had once said she slept for 8 hours a night. Mariah clapped back and said, "If I didn't have to sing my own songs, darling, I'd get 8 hours too." Phew, the shade was strong. But here's what made people side-eye even more. This thing about J.Lo not singing her own songs has been talked about for years. And it's not just Mariah who felt some type of way. Now that we've cracked open the drama between Mariah and J.Lo, let's dive even deeper into the mess. And trust me, it's a lot. So you remember how we mentioned J.Lo possibly not singing her own songs? Well, this is where Ashanti comes in. Back in the early 2000s, Ashanti was one of the hottest rising stars. She was signed to Murder Inc., and according to her, she was working on songs that somehow ended up in J.Lo's hands. One of the most talked about tracks was I'm Real. Now this song became a huge hit for J.Lo, but here's the thing, Ashanti said it was actually her vocals on the track. That's right, the background vocals, the chorus, all of it was Ashanti. She had recorded the track and then it was handed off to J.Lo. But why would that happen? Well, according to Ashanti and even Irv Gotti, the label exec at Murder Inc., the track was originally meant for Mariah Carey. But once again, Tommy Mottola stepped in and gave it to J.Lo instead, allegedly to keep punishing Mariah. Ashanti was basically caught in the middle. She said she didn't even know the song had been taken from her until it was already out. And to make it worse, she still heard her own vocals on J.Lo's version. Ashanti also said she wrote Ain't It Funny, another major hit for J.Lo. She wrote the lyrics, sang the chorus, added ad-libs, and again, J.Lo just laid down the bare minimum vocals. The industry let it slide, but Ashanti didn't get proper credit for years. In fact, she said it took 2 decades for the truth to come out. When she finally spoke up in an interview, she said it was frustrating to be treated unfairly and not given credit for her work. But wait, there's more. Fat Joe, who worked closely with both Ashanti and J.Lo, once said that another song, What's Love, was almost given to J.Lo too. He shared that Irv Gotti and Ja Rule called him in the middle of the night to come to the studio because they had made a song for the Latinos, meaning him and J.Lo. But that song, it had already been promised to Ashanti. And once again, J.Lo didn't seem to have a problem with jumping on the opportunity, even though she knew someone else had done the work. Ashanti later admitted that, yes, it was hard to see someone else take the credit for something she created. She said people were surprised when they learned the truth, but she was just grateful the truth eventually came out. Still, the damage had already been done. Now here's where things take another wild turn. Sources close to Mariah Carey are saying she might finally be ready to talk. For real. Like spill all the tea ready. She's been quiet for years about what really went down behind the scenes, how her songs were stolen, how her career was sabotaged, and how powerful people in the music industry worked against her. People are whispering that Mariah is working on something big. Maybe it's a second memoir, maybe it's a documentary, or maybe she's just waiting for the perfect moment to tell us everything. And when she does, it's going to shake the whole industry. The question is, will she finally name names? And if she does, what will Beyoncé and J.Lo say then? Like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned because it's about to get even messier.